Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you leave thinking, that's not what I said, that's not even close to what I meant, and yet somehow you're the one who feels cornered, defensive, exhausted, misunderstood? Because suddenly the conversation is no longer about your actual argument. It's about a distorted, exaggerated, often ridiculous version of it, one you don't even recognize as your own. This is the world of the strawman fallacy, where ideas are not debated but disfigured, where truth isn't confronted but caricatured, and where the loudest voice often wins, not because it's right, but because it's fighting an opponent that never existed. Hello and welcome back to the Personal Lens with me, Jayanti, and today we ask a simple but dangerous question. What happens when society stops arguing with ideas and starts arguing with fantasies instead? What is the strawman fallacy? At its core, the strawman fallacy is the tactic where someone misrepresents an argument, simplifies it, exaggerates it, or twists it so that it becomes easier to attack. Instead of engaging with what was actually said, they build a weaker version of the argument, a fake opponent, a straw figure, and then they knock it down triumphantly. The name comes from military training. Soldiers once practiced combat by striking straw dummies, harmless, hollow, incapable of resistance. That's the trick. You don't defeat the real argument, you defeat the straw version of it, and then you claim victory. Why the straw man is so alluring? The strawman fallacy thrives because it does three very tempting things. It avoids intellectual effort. See, engaging honestly with complex ideas requires listening, nuance, and humility. Distortion is easy. It flatters the ego. You look smarter when you win an argument, especially against a simplified opponent. It controls the narrative. Whoever reframes the argument controls how it is perceived. This is not accidental, it is strategic. Now let's talk about the everyday strawman. When this fallacy lives in our homes, let's move away from the theory and into real life. You say, I think we need to talk about emotional labor in relationships. The response, oh, so now men are useless and women are saints. You say workplaces should consider gender sensitive policies. The response, so you want special privileges instead of equality? You say, I'm uncomfortable with how religion is used to control women's bodies. The response, so you hate religion and culture. Notice what's happening? Your actual argument disappears. In its place stands a louder, more extreme position, one you never even took. The straw man allows people to reject complexity without admitting discomfort. In politics, the strawman is not just common, it is weaponized. A protest against a state policy becomes hatred for the nation. A demand for caste justice becomes they want to divide society. A call for gender equality becomes they want to destroy family values. Why address injustice when you can simply redefine it as treachery? This is how dissent is neutralized, not by argument but by distortion. Now, the social media has surcharged the strawman fallacy. Why? Because outrage travels faster than accuracy. Algorithms reward extremes, simplifications, misrepresentation. A nuanced opinion doesn't go viral. A distorted screenshot does. Suddenly, no one argues with what you actually believe. They argue with what you're accused of believing. And once the strawman is established, defending yourself feels like guilt. Why the strawman is dangerous and not just annoying? This fallacy does real harm. It silences marginalized voices, makes honest dialogue impossible, turns disagreement into hostility, encourages moral superiority instead of understanding. Most dangerously, it trains us to stop listening. We don't wait to understand, we wait to attack. And what is the personal cost? Gaslighting through argument. Here's where the strawman becomes deeply personal. When someone repeatedly misrepresents your words, you begin to question yourself. Did I say it wrong? Was I unclear? Am I overreacting? This is not debate. This is epistemic violence, the erosion of someone's ability to trust their own voice. And women, queer people, and marginalized communities experience this disproportionately. Because the straw man often relies on stereotypes already waiting to be activated. So, how to recognize a straw man instantly? Ask yourself. Did they respond to what I actually said or to a more extreme version? Are they attacking a position I didn't hold? Did they use words like always, never, or sweeping generalizations? Did they change my argument into a moral accusation? And if yes, you're not in a debate, you're facing a straw man. We often talk about logical fallacies as if they are accidents, as if people simply didn't know how to argue properly. But in India, logical fallacies, especially the straw men, are not errors. They are instruments. Because a society that argues honestly has to confront uncomfortable truths, and discomfort is expensive for those in power. Think about it. If a government actually engaged with criticism, it would have to explain policy failures. If a dominant caste engaged with anti caste arguments, it would have to confront inherited privilege. If patriarchy engaged honestly with feminism, it would have to give up control, not just apologize for excesses. That's a high price. So instead, Pa chooses a cheaper option: misrepresentation. Turn critic into insult, turn questions into threats, turn dissent into disloyalty. Once that happens, no argument is required anymore, only outrage. This is why logical fallacies thrive in television debates, courtrooms of public opinion, WhatsApp forwards, and political speeches. Not because people don't know better, but because fallacies work. They shift the burden of explanation into the critic, allow power to perform strength without accountability, replace evidence with emotion, and most importantly, make the powerful look victimized. In India, victimhood is persuasive currency. The moment the powerful present themselves as hurt, offended, or under attack, the conversation ends. No one asks why the question was raised. Everyone rushes to defend sentiment. The straw man then is not bad reasoning, it is emotional governance. But what an honest argument would actually look like, and why we avoid it. An honest argument is surprisingly simple, and that is exactly why it is so threatening. An honest argument begins with this sentence: let me check if I've understood you correctly, and not so what you're saying, but tell me if this is what you mean. That one shift changes everything because suddenly the goal is not to defeat, but to understand. An honest argument does not rush to moral judgment. It stays with the discomfort of complexity. It asks which part of this makes me uneasy and why. What am I being asked to give up if this argument is true? Am I reacting to the idea or to what it threatens? And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most arguments in India are not about truth at all. They are about preserving identity, protecting hierarchy, avoiding guilt, escaping responsibility. An honest argument would force us to admit things like I benefit from this system, I'm afraid of losing status, I don't want to rethink what feels normal. So instead of saying all that, we attack a straw man. Because it is easier to fight an exaggeration than to sit with self-reflection. But here's the thing we rarely say out loud. If an argument collapses when accurately represented, it deserves to collapse. And if it only survives through distortion, outrage, and emotional blackmail, then it was never strong to begin with. Honest disagreement is not weakness, it is intellectual courage. And the strawman fallacy exists precisely to prevent that courage from becoming common. The strawman fallacy survives because it gives us permission to stop listening. It allows us to feel victorious without being honest, righteous without being accountable, certain without being correct. But a society that argues with distortions eventually loses the ability to recognize truth at all. When we replace understanding with outrage, disagreement, and accusation, and thought with performance, something essential breaks. Not civility, not politeness, but democracy itself. Because democracy does not require agreement, it requires good faith. And the moment we stop engaging with what people actually say and start responding to what is easiest to attack, we are no longer debating ideas. We are rehearsing dominance. Knocking down straw men is easy. Facing the real argument takes courage. And courage, not outrage, is what thinking societies are made of. Because societies don't collapse when people disagree. They collapse when people stop listening. And the strawman fallacy is not just a flaw in reasoning, it is a refusal to meet each other honestly. At the personal lens, we believe this. The personal is political, but only when we argue with what is real, not what is easy. This is the personal lens where we slow down the noise, sit with discomfort, and insist on thinking honestly. Because the personal is political, and how we argue tells us exactly what kind of society we are becoming. Thank you so much for listening to me. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share The Personal Lens. Leave your comments at the email provided in the description. And until next time, keep looking through the personal lens.